Hey, this is Matt Pryor. You're listening to the Voice and Verse podcast.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Voice and Verse podcast. I'm your host, Evan Lucy, taking you through the stories behind your favorite songs. This week I am very pleased to welcome to the program Mr. Matt Pryor. You might know Matt from his involvement in revered indie rock band The Get Up Kids, but he's done more than just that. He's also formed the bands The Terrible Twos and The New Amsterdams, along with releasing solo material under his own name. His newest album, 2013's Wrist Slitter, came out last November on Max Bemis's Rory Records imprint through Equal Vision. He's also a member of the service Downright, which connects fans and songwriters to create and commission songs personalized for them. I caught up with Matt backstage at the Auto Bar in Baltimore, Maryland, to talk about his involvement with Downright and how songwriting is, at times, a little bit like fatherhood. Stick around till the end of the show for some news and notes, but until then, I hope you enjoy this conversation with Matt.
So many questions, awful answers, non-believers. Why do we ask?
You live in Lawrence, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay. I went to Mizzou.
Okay, so did most of my family did too.
Okay.
I'm actually from Kansas City on the Missouri side. So.
Okay, the good side.
Yeah. We were on the right. Kansas was on the right side of the war, though.
I actually like Lawrence. It's a cool
Lawrence
town.
is the best. It's a little slice of heaven. I love
Except
it.
for that bird that wears shoes.
Well, it's a silly bird.
Yeah.
But no, hey, I'm the only guy in Lawrence that has love for Missouri because that's where I grew up.
I like that. So you grew up playing in bands in Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
Who were the bands that inspired you to play music?
Initially, it's strange, but the first music that really ever spoke to me was like LA glam metal, like Motley Crue and Guns N' Roses and stuff. And when you first get into music and you become obsessed with it, and so I had like my subscription to Rip magazine and Metal Edge and stuff, and then slowly through that, when that kind of metal hardcore mashup thing kind of happened, that led me to like Bad Religion and the Misfits, and then once I discovered Fugazi, it was just like, and then the rest is history.
So who was that band that was like, okay, I'm going to pick up a guitar and try to write these songs on my own? Was it Fugazi?
No, I started writing guitar on my own before then, just because I started playing drums originally, and I wanted to write. So my mom had this old classical guitar. I think I was really into Jane's Addiction at the time. And so I remember going to a guitar teacher, and he was teaching me how to play Day Tripper by the Beatles, and I was like, fuck that, I want to play Mountain Song. Now I don't.
Do you remember the first song you ever wrote?
Yeah, there's an incarnation of it. The last song on the first New Amsterdams record is called, It's called I Won't Run Away.
Okay.
And the little finger-picking riff in it is the first thing that I ever wrote.
That's awesome.
It's not, like I didn't write that song when I was 12, but I wrote that little finger-picking thing.
Cool. That's cool how it just kind of reappears again.
Yeah, it's one of those like, well, this isn't terrible, and it makes for a good story if I write a good song around it. So.
Right. What was the writing process like in the Get Up Kids? I imagine you had 5 people with 5 strong opinions.
That's putting it mildly. It's like 5 silverback gorillas all in one room. Our first this kind of gets confusing. Our first record and our most recent record that came out in 2011 were written in a collaborative way. The first things that we did, the things that came out on Doghouse and before James, our keyboard player, was in the band, were written very collaboratively. In like, I have this riff, let's build a song around it, and then let's build vocals around that. The records in between those two, usually it was either primarily me, sometimes Jim, sometimes even Rob and Ryan would bring in an idea or even a completed song, and then we would build around that. So it would be more of a... It wasn't really a collaborative like songwriting, but it was a collaborative arranging, and definitely like fleshed everything out to what is that the sound, quote unquote, of those records. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then on Guilt Show, I was reading that you, to fast forward a few years, on Guilt Show you were primarily doing a lot of the writing because of James was elsewhere, and
James was in his own world. Yeah.
Yeah.
James has never been a big songwriter in the Get Up Kids. He's a fantastic arranger, and he has his own stuff that, he does Reggie and but so yeah, he would write. He would help with arranging and write parts, and he can do strings and he can do piano, and he writes vocal harmonies, and he'll add things. But he never came in with like a, hey, I've got a verse chorus chorus kind of thing.
So there were these demos that leaked online from Guilt Show. I don't know if it was a leaked thing or if it was actually a release somehow.
It was an intern that worked at our recording studio.
Oh, wow.
Stole them and put them online.
Oh, okay. Well,
and some of them are really terrible.
I was going to ask you, because especially the song "Martyr Me," there seems to be like five or six different variations of that song.
That song went from... That was one of those songs where like got this really great part, and then like... It's like...
The chorus part? I mean, is that the verse?
Well, it was like the verse... Okay. The verse was written during the making of Guilt Show.
Okay.
And everybody liked the verse. And I couldn't come up with a chorus I liked, so I went digging through old demos and found a chorus that Tonight If You're Awake at All was from a totally different song. And then I had to like transpose it to fit that. And then I really liked the bridge a lot, and I think that's from even another song. So it's a Franken song, really.
Does that happen a lot with you, or do you not usually go back and farm old stuff to make new things?
I do go back and farm old stuff. Like the way I made my new record was really just listening to like, little iPhone demos that we like have an idea and just la 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 la, and then like building out of that, which is hard for me because I usually want to just start from scratch.
Right.
And but yeah, that one. Everybody, I would have scrapped it, probably, left to my own devices, but everybody really liked that verse so much, they just kept pushing for it, and I was just like, God damn it, it's fine. And it turned out good, but I have to train myself, I've had to train myself that just because a part is good doesn't mean the song is good, or just because a lyric is good doesn't mean that the song is good. You have to have sort of an editor's ear.
Right, and that's sometimes the beauty or the downfall of working for other people, is that you have people to edit things for you and say, well, this is good, but maybe let's scrap the chorus and just take the verse.
Collaborative process is all about communication, good, bad, and otherwise. If you have good communication, you can still be arguing about something but still being constructive. But yeah, it definitely, sometimes you have to put your fucking foot down and just be like, if you're going to do that guitar line, this song's not going on the record.
It's probably a bit like parenting.
Yeah. It's not terribly dissimilar.
So when you come back in the room and you do There Are Rules, having had all of those different musical experiences in the interim, you did New Am's records, you did solo records, James was doing his Reggie stuff, you had Spoon and Koufax and Blackpool Lights that were also active at that time. Did that change the way the songs were written?
We didn't want it to sound... We wanted the record to sound like a cohesive thought and not like, oh, here's the Jim song, and oh, here's the Matt song, and oh, here's the James song. We wanted it to be like, strip all that away and figure out what are the things that the five of us can agree on, and that's usually Fugazi and Superchunk. But then at the same time, just the nature of that band, because it's not something, it's at this point it's really something that we do for fun, is to just to challenge ourselves creatively. And so there's some weird shit on that record.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like, but it's kind of like, it's like we kept saying make it weird, like that would be like the kind of the thing, but then you have to go back and edit it and be like, okay, is this weird good, or is this weird for the sake of being
weird?
Weird?
Exactly.
And I think there is some weird for the sake of being weird on that record, but I think that at the heart of it, I think the songs themselves are good.
Absolutely. Why did you decide to do the New Amsterdams? Was it just so you could have sole control over the songwriting, or did you just really want to do something that...
I got really into Steve Earle.
Okay.
In like about 1999. And I was already listening to a lot of like, at the time was called alt country, like early Wilco and the old 97s,
sure,
and the Bottle Rockets and that kind of stuff. And I wanted to do something where it was more acoustic oriented and more singer-songwriter oriented, and just to see if I could do it, honestly. Right. Like, to see if I could do it songwriting wise, but then also just to see if I could make a record without those guys.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
it was a bit of a personal challenge too, yeah.
I mean, that happened earlier too, where there was another guy in my life that I was in bands with where I felt like I couldn't do anything without his approval, and it's just kind of like, well, no, I gotta, whenever I'm doing that, that's not going to end well.
Right. And then the irony is that the New Amsterdams became a full band. And...
Well, the Get Up Kids broke up, and so it was kind of like, well, this is my job.
Might as well,
yeah.
Right? So even when you guys were a full band, were you just the chief songwriter in the New Amsterdams, or did the other guys have things that they brought in?
Our record, Story Like a Scar, is pretty collaborative. There's some collaboration there, but it's mostly me.
Okay.
And actually, the guys that are playing with me on this tour are the drummer and bass player of the New Amsterdams.
Oh, so. Very cool. What does putting your name on a project like your solo records that you do now, what does that do? Does that make you a little more conscious of the songs you're putting out, or no? It's honestly more of a business decision. Okay.
It kind of streamlines the whole operation, because, I mean, if you think about it, like, every time I put out a record or every time I put out, play a show, it always says either, this is how it'll read, either The New Amsterdams featuring Matt Pryor of the Get Up Kids, or it can say Matt Pryor of the Get Up Kids and the New Amsterdams. And so I was kind of like, I started doing my podcast, I started doing other songwriting stuff. I was just like, let's just bring this all in-house, and it's just me, and it's my name, and that's the brand, you know.
Sure.
And then it's also, if I want to play by myself, I can, and if I want to play with a band, I can, and it doesn't have to feel awkward. Like, I'm a band. Like, I am the New Amsterdams. You know, like,
right.
So it just kind of it's really. It wasn't for any personal fulfillment to like put my own name on a T-shirt.
Sure.
But it definitely makes things easier.
Absolutely.
Business-wise.
Okay, so you've got your podcasts, and you talk to a lot of your friends, and there are songwriting things that get swapped in there. And then you do these really cool, I'm not sure what the status is of it, the Where's the Band tour.
We haven't done it in a couple, almost 2 years, I think. Just because it's an impossible thing to schedule. Right. Because it's like, okay, when are all of you guys, A, not on tour, but B, not going back to those same markets with your band within like the next 6 months? And it's just like, Saves has a new record out, and Dustin started a church, and
Bayside's about to have a new record
Bayside has a new record coming out, and I have my new record out, and James and I have been doing this collaboration thing, but he's got a new Reggie record out, so it's just kind of like, nah. So I don't know. I love those guys, and I would certainly love to do that again sometime.
But I imagine when you get songwriters like that, guys who are just lifers together, you talk shop all the time.
More what we do is we listen to pop. At least with me and Conley and Ranieri, we listen to pop music in the van. You know, like I'm sure Wrecking Ball would be a big hit right now, and we dissect it, and we go through it, and we listen to stuff, and we're all very opinionated. We're like,
sure.
No, that chorus just sucks. That chorus is just not as good as the rest of the song. And Conley's the most brutal. For as much of a hippie as he is, he's just like, just turn this off, or I will kill myself.
What do you admire about those guys? Somebody like Chris. What do you admire about him as a songwriter?
As a songwriter, yeah. I admire like the brutality of his lyrics. Kind of. I didn't know his stuff that well until we became friends, And then he's probably the best person I know. I love it when it's like a happy song with dark lyrics.
Absolutely.
And he's probably, of the people I've ever met, he does it better than anybody else. Ranieri's got a really good sense of melody.
Absolutely.
He's got a really cool, he's a good lyricist, and he's got a really cool way of like when his hand got fucked up and we had to learn some of his songs, he was going to sing them and we had to learn the guitar chords, and I was like, I thought this was like 3 chords. It's like 15 chords with the same melody in it. And he was like, yeah. And he's very diligent. He's very focused. You know, he does a lot. He's always scheming. He does a lot of research.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Does that inspire you to kind of up your own game?
From Anthony?
From just knowing, songwriters who are amazing in their own respective ways.
I respect them. I take more inspiration from them on a personal level. Like Chris and his, oneness with the universe. If ever I get stressed out, I channel my inner Conley, and then Anthony with his his business sense and his he has a very well, fuck you. This is how I want to do it.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
He's got that Long Island.
Yeah.
Mentality. Who are songwriters that you look up to these days? Who is currently making music that makes you go, oh, that inspires me to write the next great song?
I went through a pretty heavy Bon Iver phase recently, which is a frustrating thing because I don't write like that. I did the same thing with Radiohead 10 years ago.
Okay.
Where, when you go through one of those phases where you just listen to one artist over and over and over again?
Absolutely.
And then I find myself going why do I even bother? I can't write like this.
You end up defeated, yeah.
Yeah, I can't write like this, and this is the only thing that's good. So, fuck it. But I came out of that already.
You also are busy on Downright these days.
Yeah.
How did you get hooked up with that? Is it just the guys that you've known?
I've known them. I had talked to Max about the song shop that he does, and I was actually kind of scared to try it, not because I didn't think I could do it, but I was worried that it would be like a wah, wah, nobody would order one, and I would feel like an asshole. And it felt safer to go through Downright, because then it's kind of it's like part of a community, and it's not all the pressure's on me. But I like being now that it's going well, I like being supportive of them because I think it is a cool model, and it's a cool way for songwriters to make money without having to be on the road.
Absolutely. So you didn't think it was going to be something that you couldn't do, but how does it challenge you as a songwriter?
It doesn't really. It takes a lot of time, but I think primarily what people want from me, it's 90% love songs. And so primarily what people want from me, it's been a different process because they want songs that sound like songs I've already done.
Sure.
And so, and then again, there's only so many chords on a guitar. So what I really try to do is try to make the lyrics really personal for them, which is not something I would do. I mean, my lyrics are very, very personal for me, but they're all steeped with metaphor and disguises. And that's not what I really do for them. I kind of do really blatant love songs. And it's not super challenging, but it's the discipline of it and just kind of exercising the muscle that is songwriting. I mean, I had done that for 2 months when it was okay, we need to do this Wrist Slitter record, so I stopped Downright and I knocked out, I had all the songs for Wrist Slitter done in 2 weeks. Because just I know what I'm doing. Here we go, boom, 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 boom. But yeah, it's great. It's really been fun, and it's. I'm glad that people like it.
Are there any songs where you write them and you go, "Oh, I want to keep that one for myself"?
There was one. It's on the new record, and I emailed the guy and I was like, "Hey, I really dig this song. Would you be cool if I put it on the new record? I'll either hook you up with whatever swag wise, or." I'll write you a different song if you would like that. And if he had said no, I wouldn't have used it.
Which song is it?
It's called So Many Questions.
Okay.
Is the name of the song.
Cool. You have your own little home studio, which makes things very easy.
Yeah, it's little is the operative term.
How do you write these days? Is it different than the way that you would write if you were doing Get Up Kids stuff or bringing songs to
It's different
UMs?
than Get Up Kids because that's more collaborative. When, at least the last time we wrote, where we'd have to like schedule practice and like all get in a room and hash something out.
But do you think about the songs differently when you don't have to bring them to somebody else?
Well, at least with this record, I did bring them to Bill and Eric, who played on the record.
Okay.
But I trust them. We've been playing together for... Bill and I have been playing together for 10 years, and Eric for 8.
Okay.
And I trust their instincts, and I know that they understand... If I give them direction, they understand what I'm talking about, and they can actually execute... if I'm like... like a string thing. And then I just give it to Eric, and he makes something amazing out of it.
He makes a string thing.
Yeah, he makes a fucking orchestra or something.
I read this quote from you that came out around the time of There Are Rules that said, I felt like I could write love songs until I'm blue in the face.
Now I literally do that.
Right, for downright, exactly. But it's a challenge to myself as a songwriter to not write about anything that's formulaic. Do you find yourself kind of slipping into those, not bad habits, but points where it's like too easy to just boilerplate it?
Yeah, certainly. Especially with the downright stuff, I have to take breaks from it. I have figured out the whole making it super personal for the person who buys the song. That's always something different to work with. I recently made it so that they give me more information.
Okay, yeah.
Because sometimes it would be like, this is for my wife. She's all I've ever wanted. She's the love of my life. And I was like, oh, fuck.
Could you be any more vague?
Yeah, and then there's only so many metaphors to work with there.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, there's marriage ones, there's love ones, there's commitment ones, going down a road together, that kind of shit. So if they give me details, then I can make something out of it. And it'll still have some of those peppered in there, but it'll be more specific to them.
How do you sing those songs with conviction when you haven't experienced them? Do you write in characters a lot?
I have. I can sing a song with... if I like the song, I can sing it... I don't know. It's like I don't have to feel it to be able to execute it well. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, I don't know if I could have said that 15 years ago. Like, I probably maybe had to be more in the moment, but I've done this enough now that I know how to deliver. It's like, I guess it's like acting.
Sure.
But as far as like performing on stage, like I don't have to like go to my special place that the song's about every time I sing them on stage. You know what I mean? Otherwise, it would just be like I'm just having all these flashbacks to when I was 18, doing old Get Up Kids songs. It's just so. No, I think I can. I think I can sell them.
Okay.
I don't think anybody feels like I'm half-assing it.
Nobody's asked for a refund yet.
No one's. I don't have. If they want a quiet folk song, I give them a quiet folk song. If they want me to belt something out, I'll belt it out. It's not. I wouldn't be able to do the downright thing if I had to be invested in every
right
subject. Like everything the song was about.
Sure. How has you got kids? They're presumably getting older, as kids do.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find yourself changing the way that you write songs just based on you have to be a little more deliberate? Maybe like, okay, I can't just aimlessly strum all day long. I have an hour here to do before I have to go pick the kids up from this. Does it force you to be a little more like?
I like it now that they're all in school, because then from 8 to 3 every day the house is quiet, and I can, whether it's getting paperwork done or getting emails answered or writing downright songs or routing a tour. It's like the closest thing you can come to office hours.
Sure.
So I like that. And when they're not and they're home, it's crazy.
Are your kids interested in music?
Mm-hmm. They all play the piano, and my oldest son plays guitar, and my daughter she just started playing upright bass in the orchestra in junior high.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
What advice would you have for them, or anybody who's pursuing songwriting as a hobby or a craft? What's something that you wish somebody had told you when you started writing songs all those years ago?
I don't know that I have that. I'm really great. Well, okay, so I'm making the kids stick with piano just because I think when I met James and he was showing me things on the piano, he taught me all about harmonies. He taught me all about, like, you know, thirds and fifths and, like, you know, all the musical theory stuff that he knows, which I can then apply to everything else that I do. And so I wanted them to stick with piano as a foundation because I think it's easy to have that as a jumping off point to go to other instruments or, you know, to understand melody and harmony and all that kind of stuff. So I guess that's the advice that I've... Start with piano. Stick with piano.
Piano will never do you wrong. Why don't you plug where people can find you online, your Twitter, your Facebook, podcast, whatever.
Matt-Pryor is the website.com. Twitter is @MattPryorSongs, and Facebook is is it just Matt Pryor? I think it's just Matt. There's two of them. I have like a personal one and a professional one.
Sure.
It's just ridiculous.
What about the podcast? Where can people find out?
It's Nothing to Write Home About, so it's ntwha.com.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Well, there you have it, guys. Hope you enjoyed that conversation. I would like to thank Matt for coming on the show. As he mentioned, he has a brand new album out now. You can get it on iTunes or at his website, matt-pryor.com. As always, you can find us online at www.voiceandversepodcast.com, on Facebook at facebook.com/voiceandversepodcast, or on Twitter at twitter.com/voiceversepod. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, leave us 5 stars, and then come back in 2 weeks for another episode of the Voice and Verse podcast, when we uncover more of the stories behind your favorite songs. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you next time.